Hey guys, I wanted to give you a little bit of a help session here on your Navigator session number 8, just to kind of talk you through how to do some of these types of problems. So you can go ahead and pull up your Navigator session 8 as you're watching through this video and kind of pause it and work through the problems with me if you'd like. And that way it would probably be easier for you to get everything finished. So we'll give you a second to do that. Go ahead and pause. And then when you're ready, come back. Okay, so we're going to look at this opening problem. Opening problem says we need to write these names in alphabetical order. So if I think about when I'm alphabetizing something, I have to follow the alphabet, so the ABCs. So I'm going to look for all of the things that start with A's. And so I see two things that start with A's. I see Adams and I see Ackroyd. So I'm going to grab my little marker over here. I think the one that would come first, well, if they're both A's, then I have to look at the next letter. So I would have to look at the second letter. And so what would come first, D or C? Well, A, B, C, C would come first. So I know that over here on my list, the first one, and I'm writing with my mouse, so give me a second. The first one would be Ackroyd. And then I could cross it out. And then I could think about the next one, which would have to be Adams, because it still starts with an A. And I've moved to the next letter, so Adams. And then I've used all the A's, so I could then go and look at all the B's. So I have Bell, Banks, and Bannister. So they all start with B. BA will come before BE. So between Banks and Bannister, they both have B and A, and they actually both have the first N. And so I'm forced to look at the fourth letter in order to figure out how these are going to go in order. So if I think about my ABCs, K would come before N. So next would be Banks. And then Bannister would come next. And then I'm going to cross those out since we've used them. And then I could think about using my last one, which starts with B, which is Bell. And we're going to keep going through this process, using up all of the names that you had within your Google document there, making sure you get everyone. And then you're going to do this bottom part down here where it says to explain your method for alphabetizing. So where did we start? Did we start with the last letter? Did we start with the first letter? We started with the first letter, right? And when the first letters were the same, then we needed to scooch to the next letter over so that we looked at the second. And if those were the same, it forced us to look to the third, and so on. Okay, so you'll give me a description in your Navigator session 8 there on what the method was for getting these in the right order. So go ahead and pause and do that work, and then come back when you're ready. Okay, so you guys have just finished up your first problems, you're coming back, and you're working here on your work time problems. So the first one, it gives us a bunch of numbers, and we need to put them in order from the greatest, so the biggest, up to the least, or down to the least. So I look at these, there's no decimals. These are all whole numbers, some numbers that are in the thousands, some numbers that are in the hundreds, some numbers are in the 10,000s, some numbers are only in the tens. So if I think about money, which one would you want to have the most, right? The most, because you want the greatest amount of money. Well, it looks like this guy right here is the biggest to me. So I think the greatest is going to be the 12,689 because it has the most digits and it's got numbers all the way into the 10,000s. And then I could go and look at numbers that are in the thousands. So I've got these ones that are in the thousands and this one. And I could think about putting those in order. And I think this is a task that you guys can probably do without me, remembering to look at the numbers that are in the thousands place and putting them in order by that before you move and jump over, right, to looking at the hundreds and so on. So keep going and fill this in. After you've done your thousands, then you'll come to your hundreds and then your tens. So go ahead and do this problem, and then pause, do this problem, and then come back to me when you're ready. Okay, so hopefully we've got those figured out. And now you're going to move on to your second problem here in work time. This time you have some decimals that are all included in here. And so we still need to sort them, and we need to put them in order from greatest to least. So as I look at these ones, I've got decimals that have all sorts of different lengths. And this was something that you guys were struggling with when you were trying to do your Navigator sessions from last week. So I want to show you how to do this type of a problem. If I have decimals that all are different lengths, some that are longer and some that are shorter, I'm going to stack them. So I'm going to line them all up where the decimal points are lined up and on top of each other. So I'm just going to come over here and rewrite them. So I have 0.8, and then underneath it, I'm going to write the 0.05, and I'm lining up the decimal points. And then I have a 0.5, I have 0.15, I have 0.465, I have 0.55 and 0.75, and then 1. 1 would be like 1.0 or 00 or 000, right? And so now that I have them all with decimals lined up, there's one right off the bat that I can tell is bigger. I can tell that this one is the largest because it has a 1 in the ones place, and all of the other numbers have zeros. So that means this number is the greatest. 1 is the greatest. I was supposed to circle that. 1 is the greatest of this list. So I would write 1, up here. I would write 1 as my greatest number. And you can type that in on your form. And then I'm going to cross that one out. We've used it. And I'm going to start to look at the rest of them. So I have some 0.8s, some 0.0s, some 0.5s, 0.1s, 0.4s, 0.5, 0.7. And notice I am just looking right here in the very first column, okay, in the tenths place. And so I'm looking for the number that's the biggest. The biggest number in the tenths place is either 8, 0, 5, 1, 4, 5, 7. It's the 8. That's the next largest number. So that's going to be what I would write next, 0.08, or 0.8, sorry. And then I would cross that off my list, right? We used that one. And I'm going to continue looking in the tens place. I have zeros, fives, ones, 4s, and a 7. A 7, that's the next largest, right? A 7 in the tens place. So that one's going to go next, 0.75. It does not matter how many numbers are within the decimal. The number, or how many digits make up the decimal, does not matter. It matters what number is in each place within the decimal. So I'm working from the left to the right, finding the largest ones and crossing them out as I go. Okay, when I look now, I have, looks like 2 5s. So right here within the 5s that I have, I'm stuck because they both have 5s, this one and this one. And so I'm forced to go to the next place over. Remember, you can always fill in with a 0 behind. So which is larger, 0.55 or 0.50? Well, 55 would be bigger than 50. So that one's going to go next, 0.55. And I'm going to have you continue to do your work. Continue adding on zeros if you need to in order to compare. Looking at that first place, if they're tied, then moving to the next place over, and so on. And then you're going to write your rule describing how are we doing this? Where did we start? If we had two numbers that were the same, where did we have to go next? And so on. So go ahead and do that work, pause this, and then come back when you're finished. Okay, so that work should be done, and we're going to go on to our last problem, which had lots and lots and lots of numbers this time that we have to organize from greatest to least. Now this one looks kind of overwhelming because we have just so many darn numbers in here. And so what I always have my students do in the classroom is I have them kind of organize them first, thinking about numbers that are in the hundreds, numbers that are in the decimals, and so on. So I'm going to have you go and do that. You need to go, please. Thank you. So I'm going to do, let's see, the largest looking numbers. I have lots of numbers that are in the 300s. So maybe I come and I make up a list of all of the big numbers, like 378. I have 340. I have 300. Any other numbers in the hundreds? I have 200. And so I'm kind of just organizing them by all the things that were in the hundreds. They could have had decimals. I don't see any numbers in the hundreds that had decimals, so I think we're good. So then I'm going to go and I'm going to look at all the numbers that had 2 digits. So really it's like thinking about something that's in the tens, like 30s or 20s or 50s. So numbers like that, like 37.9, right? It's in the tens. Oops, 37.9. Let's see what else there is. 33, right? 33.4 is in the tens. And 40 is in the tens. These last 3 would be in the tens. So I have 40. I have 37.25. And I have 37.10. These are all the ones that are in the tens, and so those are kind of organized for me so that it'll make it easier to try and fit everything in order from greatest to least. And then I could go do anything that was in just in the ones place that maybe have decimals and so on. So I have this 3.4, and this would be a long list here. So 3.4, I have 3.05, I have 4.01, I have 3.15, 3.005, 3.9, 3.85, and so on. You would continue going all the way through your list. I did not get all of them, but you would get all the way through your list. And then you could start to organize and think about which are the things that are the biggest numbers overall, which are the medium-sized numbers, which are the small numbers. And if I can organize within each category then, so like taking all of these are the biggest numbers. They're in the hundreds. I could put them in order first, and then I could go into my middle category here and put these in order, and then come up and do all these tinier decimals. And that would kind of give me some structure in how I'm trying to organize these overall, since there's so many of them. So I'm going to have you pause here, take some time to go ahead and finish organizing them, and enter your response on your Google Doc. Okay, so you should have this one done, and let's look at our last part, which is our reflection. So what advice would you give someone who is going to go do that last problem with all those numbers that we had? What advice would you give them in order to get all of those numbers in order? So think about, where should they begin? Did they start on the right-hand side of the numbers, on the left-hand side of the numbers? Did we organize them in some way to begin with? How should we do it? And then what should they do next, and so on. So when you're ready, you'll write your reflection also. If you have questions on anything from today's assignment, please sign up for a Sign Up Genius, or even just shoot me an email. We can also do a Google Hangout and text each other back and forth and try and get some questions answered that way, okay? I hope this helps, and I hope that you guys are doing well and staying healthy and safe, and we will talk soon.